Yeah, yeah. Welcome. Here. Hi. Take another book from the book there to see the show. Hi, Book. What's your name?
Ashira.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm sure if there's a nanny, right? I'm sure if there's a nanny, don't.
No. No glasses this time. Big hats.
Tell me I look different every time.
Yeah.
Is that an English version?
No, it's a different book. That just came out last week. We have the first day of the radio show. Huh?
Oh, that's Shlomo Katz's.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, let's go. Page 137. Okay. So we're starting a new section, and it's the way they titled this section is Ein Sof Ahava, Infinite Love. So he says, Ahava Leiv HaChayim, the love, the heart of life. Morai v'Rabotai. If you lose the place, I'll tell you, okay? But you can, as I read, you can follow, yeah? Okay. Morai v'Rabotai. My teachers and my friends and my teachers, כשרק מתחילים לדבר על אהבת הבריות. As soon as we start talking about love among the people, ועל אהבת Hashem and love of God, כבר נוגעים בלב ליבם של החיים. So you're already touching the heart of hearts of life, בנקודה הפנימית של כל היקום, and you're touching the innermost point of all existence. שהרי הדבר האלוקי ביותר שיש בעולם, the most divine thing in the world is the most divine thing in the world is who le'ahov mishu, is to love someone. רבי נחמן אומר שנשפע לנו מן השמיים נועם עליון. Rabbi Nachman says that there is a flow of shefa from heaven, Noam Elyon, this highest sweetness or pleasantness, Shemechaya Otanu Bet Haolam, right? It's that love that flows to us from the supernal love that flows to us, that gives us life and gives life to the world. Ha'ava shel Hashem Eleinu. That is God's love for us, that gives us life. Sharei ein lecha davar yoter na'im me'ahava, because there's nothing more pleasant than love. V'anoam elyon hazeh, and this supernal sweetness, zorim lamata, flows down, ela שרק מי שיש לו חוש מיוחד יכול להרגיש בו. But you have to have a special sensitivity to actually feel it. Right? So what's he saying? He's saying that that the life energy that's coming down. So let's start from what we experience ourselves, right? Um, somebody comes into the into the room, someone that you haven't seen for a long time, and they love you, and and they just come in, and you can right away feel their love, right? What happens to you? What happens to you? What do you experience? It's not like anybody, huh?
Energy, I would imagine.
You experience energy, you experience pleasantness, what? Affection, right? But physiologically, what happens? Anything? Does anything happen to you physiologically too that you can describe?
Whatever anxiety a person may have, it diminishes.
The anxiety seems to be gone. What else? You just feel more alive, right? You feel more alive. You're being touched in the innermost part of your being, right? Correct? Okay. Now that, in other words, you feel it. You like all of a sudden your energy is better. Your everything is better. Your thinking is better. Your energy is better, and so on, right? Just from feeling that love coming towards you, right? And that is that's sort of like a parable, so to speak, for the divine love that is continuously flowing to the world, that is giving the world life. And God created the world. God said, "Let there be light," etc., etc. God said, "Let this be, let this be, let that be." Right? Okay. So what Reb Nachman is saying is, okay, so it's not just this. It's not that God barked the command, "Let there be light," type of thing. You understand? It's God blessed it to be this way. It's Olam. What's the verse? Olam Chesed Yibaneh. The world is built with love. It's an act of love on God's part. Chesed is the giving, right? It's God's giving to the world. But you have to have a special sensitivity to actually feel it, to sense it, to experience it. You don't just automatically feel it, right? Okay, so Shnei Sugei Ahava. There are two types of love. יש שני סוגים של אהבה בעולם. There's two types of love in the world. יש אהבה של אחרי הבריאה ויש אהבה של לפני הבריאה. So there's a love of after creation and there's a love of before creation. Okay? We'll see in a second. למשל, for example, אם אני הולך ברחוב, if I'm walking in the street, ואין בליבי לא אהבה ולא שנאה. And I don't have I'm just walking in the street and I'm not feeling neither love nor hatred. ופתאום אני רואה את בת הזוג שלי וליבי מתמלא באהבה. And suddenly I see my soulmate and my heart gets filled with love. זאת אהבה של אחרי הבריאה. That's love of after creation. Why? Because הייתי צריך שמשהו ייגע בי כדי שיהיה לי אהבה. In other words, I needed something to stimulate me in order to feel the love. I needed something to touch me. Right? כתוב בתהילים, עולם חסד ייבנה. The world is, it says in Tehillim, the world is built with love. השם ברא את העולם עם אהבה. God created the world with love. לא שיש עולם והשם אוהב את העולם. It wasn't like there was a world and God loves the world, right? Zot ahava shel acharei habriya. That's the love of after creation. Ela shemerov ahava shehayta belibo shel hakadosh baruch hu, but rather the way it happened was that because of the great love that God has had in his heart, hu hayat tzarich livrot haolam, he needed to create the world, sheyuchal lahashpia leolam et ahava hazot. He needed to create the world so that he can have someone to give that love to, so that he can have someone to share that love with them. Okay? Shefa is a noun, means flow.
Abundance, no?
Abundance, right? But it literally means flow, okay? Mashpia is the one who's making the flow. And lehashpia is the infinitive. What?
Doesn't the word zorem?
Zorem also means flow, but it's not the zorem is something is flowing. Okay? That's what zorem means.
Lashpi, does that mean to influence?
Yes, also, right? When you like in a yeshiva, like in a Hasidic yeshiva, instead of a mashgiach, they have a mashpia. In other words, someone who, rather than having someone who's telling you what you're doing wrong and watching out to make sure that you do everything right, then the job of the mashpia is to bring you more light, to influence you in that way, right? Okay. Now, this is what we just learned is something to try to get in touch with. In other words, not just to leave it as words. Try to get in touch with. So I imagine, I don't know. I would. Do you think that men can get in touch with us as easily as women? What experience would like? What would you call the desire of a woman to have a child? Would that be her? She's got this love and she just wants to have someone to share it with. Would that be love from before creation? Would that be love after creation? Okay.
Would be a maternal instinct, would you say?
Well, yeah, in common language they would call that as a maternal instinct, right? That's true. But it's interesting that is that. Would you equate it with what we read over here?
It's above after creation because the woman has already been created.
That's it's what you're saying is true. Everything that we're going to talk about is after creation. You understand? But we're still trying to get in touch with that. You would say that it's what? It's before creation. The child.
Even literally, though, a mother loves her kids before she has them.
I think she's
Hmm?
that it may not be before or after, but it's she's connecting with that shepherd. I mean, she's essentially connecting with by having a child. It opens to creation.
She's doing something similar to what God is doing. Is that what you mean?
Or she's
Connecting with that shepherd.
She's doing something the same at the same time with that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
She's tapping into the very chamber of creation itself in the moment.
Okay. I didn't bring up the question to pretend that I'm going to give you an answer right now. I just wanted you to think about it a little bit more. Okay? I didn't just want to read on and without thinking about it. Okay? To give you another example, you just won the lottery, right? You won millions and millions of dollars, right? So if you wait until somebody comes knocking on the door and like somebody is starving and so on, and you feel and your compassion is aroused or whatever it is, and you give them money, then So then that's, in other words, you needed something to arouse your love. It's after creation, right? But if on the other hand you say, "Wow, I've got all this money, and I can do something fantastic with it." Come sit over here just so I can say Michal. Take the look now. I want to do something with this. I want to, page 137, 138. I want to do something with it. That's already, your love is motivating you to do something rather than than some incident or some event arousing your love. Okay? Okay, let's see page 138. Ahavat hayeled.
I have a question.
Yes.
If there is something that arouses love in you, it means that at a certain level, we have that love inside of us.
You have the capability, yeah, right. You have it, yeah.
We're using something external to wake up.
Right.
But ideally, we could train in that way, we could arouse that love without less external influence.
Right. You can be far more in touch with that love, and that could be the motivation of everything you're doing rather than a reaction to something. Yeah. Okay. So he says on page 138, אהבת הילד. גם לגבי ילדים יש שני סוגים של אהבה. Also, concerning children, there's two types of love. Has anybody here ever seen the movie Fiddler on the Roof?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you love me?
After 25 years, I've watched this
It's a great movie. You haven't seen it? So he's singing to his wife, do you love me? And she says, I've been washing your clothes for 25 years. I've been doing all this for et cetera, et cetera. Do I love you? Right?
I suppose I do.
I
No,
suppose
if
I
that's
do.
not love, what is?
Right.
Okay, let's just clarify one thing. The root of the Hebrew word ahava is hav, hey bet. And what does hav mean? It means give. Okay, it's giving. Okay, good. So, concerning children, there's also two types of love. Yesh ahava acharei shenivro'u. There's love after they've been born, after they've been created. Klamar, meaning to say, Mikivan Shem Nivru Vehem Hayladim Shelcha, since they've been created and they're your children, Lachen Ata Ohev Otam, therefore you love them. Yesh Ahava Lifnei Shenivru, and then there's a love before they were created. Klamar, Shebiglal Rov Ha'ava Shahayta Lecha Balev, meaning to say that because of the great love that you had in your heart, Lachen hebet et hayeladim leolam, that's why you brought these children into the world. Zed b'dugmat ha'avat shel lifnei abriya. That is similar to the love of before creation. Ish v'isha shemevi'im yeladim ve'en b'nei ahava. Man and a woman who bring children into the world without love, Hemeleim kas, they're full of anger. Because they know that they've lost out, they missed the essence, they lost the essence. Shikara Bria Ena Ela Alidei Ahava. Because the essence of creation is really through love. Okay? In other words, biologically, children are born, and whether the parents at the time of conception were doing it whether they were doing their act with love or whether they were just, being physical. But if the child is born and there was no love, so he says that that the parents are always angry because they've missed the essence of what it is to bring the child into the world. One Friday night I was going to shul and I was walking by some apartment on the street, and I heard this mother cursing out her child. I felt like stopping and knocking on their door and saving that child, but it was horrible. Sometimes you hear parents say terrible things to their kids, so what Reb Shlomo is saying is that basically, if that child is brought into the world without love, then it's not surprising that if the parents are always angry at the child, because that poor child didn't come into the world with love, or because of love,
They would have started loving after.
Yeah. There's no question about it, but it's a different level it's a different level of that child coming into the world, right? Okay, so now this is where. By the way, I have a recording of Reb Shlomo teaching this originally, but the CD is, I don't know, for some reason or other, there's something wrong with the recording, but. So one day maybe you'll have a chance to actually be able to listen to him. So he says, Sotah Refuah, the secret of healing. Now open the gates of your heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu karat brit im Avraham Avinu. God made a covenant with Abraham, with our father Abraham. Avraham Avinu mal et atzmo, and then he went ahead and circumcised himself. Ubayom hashlishi lemilato hayu lo kelim chazakim. And on the third day, you know the story from the Torah, right? And on the third day, the Torah tells us that Avraham Avinu was full of pain. And what happens is that Kadosh Baruch Hu hotzi chama min atika. God made it particularly hot on that day, כדי שלא להטריח את אברהם אבינו באורחים, in order not to bother Avraham Avinu with guests. אבל אברהם אבינו לא היה יכול לחיות בלי אורחים. Avraham Avinu couldn't live without guests. I'm in the middle of teaching a class. 1:30 we could talk. Okay, bye. So, but Avraham Avinu couldn't live without guests. So what did he do? He sent his servants out to find guests, and they couldn't find any. So God sent in 3 angels. Right? So you know the story, right? Familiar with it? Now, what's the basis of that midrash? The basis of that midrash is that the Torah tells us that it was a very hot day. It says, "V'hu yoshev petach ha'ohel kechom hayom." He was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. So the midrash says, why is he sitting at the entrance of his tent? He's waiting to see if anybody. Right, Avraham Avinu is the arch example of achnasat orchim. Right, he's always welcoming people into his tent and providing for them, etc. So the Torah is telling us he's sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. So why is the Torah telling you what the weather is like? Right. So the whole medrash that we just read now is that he had just circumcised himself 3 days earlier. The third day after surgery of any kind is the most difficult one for recovery, and so he's in a lot of pain. So God made it very, very hot so that people should not be walking around, and so he should have a chance to rest. But he's sitting out there, and he wants to have guests, right? So, וצריך להבין, we have to understand. Avraham Avinu machnis orchim kol chayav. All his life, right, according to our tradition, Avraham Avinu is doing achnasat orchim, he's welcoming guests into his home. But Torah lo maskira ez. And the Torah doesn't tell us about it. It doesn't mention it. This is the only story in the Torah where we see Avraham Avinu bringing guests into his home, right? But we have a tradition that all his life, this is what he was doing, right? V'dafka kan, and particularly here, kishaochim hem malachim, when the guests are angels, vehem lo be'emet hayu tzrichim lechol, and angels don't really need to eat, right? כמו שאומרת הגמרא, like the Gemara says, שהם רק עשו עצמם כאילו הם אוכלים. They were pretending to eat. דווקא כאן התורה מזכירה את זה. So דווקא here, particularly here, the Torah is telling you, you know, your father Abraham, look at what he does. He's bringing guests into his home and he's feeding them. Okay, so tell me about him. Why don't you tell me about him feeding people who are really hungry? Why are you telling me the story about how he brought angels into his home and he's running and feeding the angels? Angels don't need to eat. What's the point? The explanation is like this. אחרי שנכנס אברהם אבינו בברית עם השם, it's very deep. He says, the second last line on 138, he says, now that Abraham Avinu had entered into the covenant with God, הוא נהיה אלוקי כל כך, he had become so divine-like, שהוא לא היה צריך אני שיעורר בו את מידת האהבה. He reached a level that he didn't need a poor man to arouse his love. שזוהי בחינת אהבה של אחרי הבריאה. When a poor man arouses your attribute of love, that's already love after creation, number 139. הוא היה פשוט מלא אהבה כמו הקדוש ברוך הוא. Now that Avraham Avinu had entered into the covenant, he was so full of love, like God. הוא היה מוכרח לעשות טוב. He has to do good. He's feeling this tremendous love that is driving him to do something for someone else. He's driven to do good. הוא לא היה במדרגה כזו שרק אם הוא ראה מישהו הוא אוהב אותו. He was no longer on the level that he loved someone only once he saw somebody. אלא שהוא חיפש מישהו לאהוב. He's running around, he's looking for somebody to love. הוא לא היה במדרגה כזו שרק אם הוא רואה את אני הוא עוזר לו. He wasn't on the level that where only once he sees a poor person, then he goes and helps him. אלא הוא חיפש עניים כדי שיוכל לעזור להם. He looked for poor people so that he could help them.
So the love for the poor person came first.
The love came first. הברית שהשם כרת עם נוח הייתה שהעולם ימשיך להתקיים. When God made a covenant with Noah, the covenant was that the world will continue to exist. Right? At the end of the flood, God makes a covenant with Noah that there will no longer be any floods that will destroy the world. Right? So he made a covenant with him that the world will continue to exist. You should drink some water. It's very hot day. You know?
I just had a lot of water.
5 gallons?
A lot.
Let me see the hump on your back.
But I will. Thank you.
So the covenant that God made with Noah was that the world will continue to exist. Noah לא היה אכפת כמה אנשים ימותו וכמה יחיו. Noah was not on the level that he really cared about how many people are going to die and how many people are going to live. העיקר שיהיו כמה בני אדם בעולם והעולם ימשיך להתקיים. God made a covenant with him that in other words, Noah, as far as he was concerned, he cared that there should be people. He cared that there should be people living in the world and that the world should continue to exist. אבל הברית שהשם כרת עם אברהם אבינו הייתה שיום יבוא והעולם כולו יתרפא. But the covenant that God made with Abraham was that there will come a day when the whole world will be healed. Yom yavo v'ha'olam kulo yiyeh mitrukan. There will come a day when everything will be fixed. Okay. Right? We're always, it's one of the essentials of our faith is the belief in the coming of Mashiach, right? And what is it about? Like, like when you say we want Mashiach, what is it that we want? Like, do you want him because we've got so many problems we can't take the problems anymore? Or do you want Mashiach because you're looking forward to the day where everything is going to be wonderful? There won't be any more poverty, and people won't be sick, etc. And you're looking and that what are we going to be doing when Mashiach comes? Like, nobody's going to be poor, nobody's going to be sick, so everybody's going to be lying on the beach the whole time. That's how we're going to spend our time. That's not what it's going to be about, right? We'll just be there, and the waiters will come by, and do you want another pina colada, or do you want this, or whatever it is? I don't know. Like, no, it's going to be that we're going to be on such a level of life that the physical aspects of life are not going to be an interference anymore. There won't be any interference from the physical, so that we will be able to spend our time in communion with God, in full awareness of the presence of Hashem throughout the, and keep on growing in that way.
Interference of the physical.
Well,
interference.
That means that you won't. In other words, you'll have bodies, right? We'll be living. But there won't be hunger bothering you. There won't be a need to. In other words, you won't be driven. You won't have to be involved. Even the physical world will be illuminated with the presence of God. Right now, the physical world conceals the presence of God.
Didn't this already occur by Yemot Kabbalah Torah, where everybody was healed and through?
In among the Jewish people, and it lasted for a short time, right? But yes, in other words, at the time that we received the Torah, we were back on the level that we were at in the Garden of Eden.
We're talking about the entire world, but not just
now. But with the coming of Mashiach, we're talking about the entire world. Yeah.
But we collectively, like Am Yisrael, we've experienced, even for a few moments, what Mashiach will be like.
We had that experience at Mount Sinai. Okay. So, Gemara Omeret, so the Gemara says, "Hashem hevi et malachim laAvraham Avinu kedei lerapei oto." So the Talmud tells us that the angels that came to Avraham Avinu, they came in order to heal him. Klamar HaKadosh Baruch Hu baa legalot laAvraham Avinu et sod harefuah. This is a bit of a mind bender here. In other words, Reb Shlomo was saying that when the Talmud tells us the angels came to heal Abraham, he's saying they didn't just come to heal him, they came to reveal the secret of healing to Abraham. And what is the secret of healing? The secret of healing is like the creation of the world. If you want to heal someone, you You have to love him so much that it has to be like the love of before creation. Okay. If I ask you, do you understand that now? And anybody's going to tell me, oh yeah, I understand it. I would be questioning whether you really understand it already, because this is something that we're so not used to. Okay? So let's think about it.
Would this mean that one wants to heal somebody and is looking for somebody to heal? Would that?
Well, it's in some sense, but let's say you in other words you're presented with, you meet a person that needs healing. Okay? So what's the secret of healing? Oh, you've got a cold. Here's some vitamin C. You've got this problem. Here, take this medication. Is that the secret of healing?
According to this, it's something different.
Say,
According to this, it's talking about love before creation,
right.
which I understand like unconditional love.
Unconditional love, right? Unconditional love, that's true. In other words, the secret of healing is to bring the energy with which God created the world, which was unconditional, right? To bring that energy and to bring that energy to this person, so that that's what's going to heal him. That's what's going to fix him. In other words, it's what you're familiar with is you're familiar with the treating the symptoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus dealing with the real issue, right? Most medicine that many are familiar with, particularly like Western medicine and so on, very often is just dealing with the symptoms. You know, you've got this problem. You've got a rash on your skin. Here's a cream, right? But why do you have the rash? You know, so the cream is not dealing with that. The cream is just dealing with the symptom. Okay, why is the person sick? So, for example, the Baal Shem Tov was a healer, and he would use herbs. He would give people herbs, but according to our tradition, he really was healing by when somebody had a physical ailment. Right, according to our tradition, our physical body has a one-to-one correspondence with the 613 mitzvot of the Torah. Right? There are 365 mitzvot lo ta'aseh, negative commandments in the Torah, and there are 365 correspondent sinews. Don't ask me to define what a sinew is. I think I once saw a picture or a drawing of it. And there are 248 mitzvot aseh, positive commandments, and corresponding to the 248 mitzvot aseh, to the 248, they're corresponding with 248 limbs. Okay? That means to say that every part of the body is getting its life energy through a particular mitzvah of the Torah. Okay? Now, you see people who are physically healthy and strong and everything and in good health, and they seemingly have no connection to the Torah. So don't ask me that question, because I don't know the answer to that. Okay, that's not where I'm going right now. But when the Baal Shem Tov was healing someone, he was able to see where this person was off spiritually. Okay, and in other words, the problem was on a higher level of life, and by fixing that, the body would be healed. Okay? Now he would give the person some herbs to take, because he wouldn't do it for everybody, but just so that the person should be able to to say, oh, I did something to get better. Like, you need something, you need something tangible. So the secret of healing is not in the actual tampering, manipulation of the body. The secret of healing is actually coming from, the secret of healing is the love of before creation. For some reason or other, this person has done something that is interfering with that love, with that flow of love, and therefore their body is having all these symptoms. The secret of healing is to put the person back in touch so that the flow works well, right? And the healing takes place. I think I told you the story. There's this amazing chiropractor in Maine. His last name is Nicoletti. And I've been to him a few times. The daughter of his once lived here in Yerushalayim. And I don't know if he's still practicing. He may be retired already, but he has this beautiful farm there, not far from you guys. And actually he had like these huge plants of blueberries, like, that he says if somebody we can take them, but he no longer had the strength to do all that, Anyway, so you know what MRT is? Muscle response testing? You've heard of it? Muscle response testing. Basically, forgive me for not being accurate because I don't understand much in these things, but basically, if the idea is that if the energy is flowing properly in your body, then they and you put out your hand and they say resist, your resistance is going to be strong. Okay? If the energy is not flowing well in your body, they just put your hand down just like that. Okay? So they call it muscle response testing, and what they're testing for is that they'll give you certain vitamins to hold in your hand or certain minerals. If you have too little of that in your body, you don't have the resistance. If you have too much of it, it also affects it. You need to have the right amount, okay, and so on. That's one way that they use this thing, okay. Now, I'll give you just another example for a second, okay. But when you're happy and you're at a wedding, for example, and you're happy, you notice how the energy is flowing in your body much better than when you're lethargic, right? There's a difference, right? Okay, so now I went there for a treatment. I happened to be down in Vermont, and I drove over there, and I knew that he was like a real big expert, because what happened was I had been on one of my trips, and I was giving a class in San Francisco or Berkeley, and he had come to visit his daughter who was living there, and at that time I had all of a sudden I had gotten this severe case of carpal tunnel syndrome or whatever. I don't even know what it was, but it was so bad I couldn't even hold my fingers up. I had lost sensation in my left hand, and for example, when I'd be washing the dishes, I would have to actually look at my hand to make sure that I'm holding the dish. I couldn't feel it, So, and I had gone to a couple of chiropractors around. Nobody was able to help me, and all of a sudden I'm in San Francisco, and he's in Berkeley, and he's there at the lecture. He had just come that day too. So I was taking a break, like after an hour. So I go over to him and I say, I heard that you're like a real great chiropractor, but do you think that this could be healed? And he starts talking to me and telling me this and that and that. And right away he said, I don't understand a word of what he's talking about. Anyway, so he said, sit down. And he just started dum 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 dum, or whatever it is. He immediately, within 45 seconds, he figured out where the blockage was, and he just says, "Okay, sit still." And he pressed on my jaw joint here, and my hand started working again. Yeah. Okay. So, on a future occasion, I went down to visit him, and he's doing a muscle response testing on me. and I had very little energy flowing through my body. He says, okay, open your mouth, pick up your tongue, and he takes a little bottle and he spritzes something under my tongue. Okay, resist, and the resistance was there. So I said, what's in that bottle? Okay, and he says, you're gonna laugh. And this guy's he's not Jewish, by the way. His wife is. And he says, you're gonna laugh. I said, okay, show me. There's a bottle of water with the Aleph Bet letters taped onto the bottle. Typewritten Aleph Bet on a piece of paper, taped onto the bottle of water. Okay? So I said to him, what? You better explain something to me here, right? So he said that these letters have a lot of power. A lot of healing power. These are the letters with which God created the world, right? That was like mind-blowing. Okay? On the future visit when I came to him, he again sprayed me under the tongue, and he says, by the way, it's no longer all the letters of the whole alphabet. He says he figured out which are the letters of healing, and he showed me. And the letters that he was using were Aleph, Lamed, Reish, Pei, Aleph, Eil, Rafa, God, heal. Okay. Now, some kind of a skeptical Western thinker would say, oh no, it's just power of suggestion and so on and so on. And go ahead, do your studies and see if it's just power of suggestion or not. It doesn't, but nevertheless, I'm just trying to illustrate over here that this guy realized that the healing, the secret of healing is not in the in the equipment. Of course you need it. Medicines become so sophisticated, etc., etc. But the real secret of healing is not in dealing with the symptoms. The real secret of healing is getting back to that life energy, to that love, the pre-creation love. Okay. And that's why you can be feeling lousy. Somebody that loves you comes into the room, and all of a sudden you feel better. Your back pain is gone. You're feeling better, etc., etc. And that's Reb Shlomo saying that's the secret of love. And that when the angels came to Avraham Avinu, they didn't just come to heal him, they actually came to reveal the secret of love.
Because when you feel love from somebody, it reminds you the love from God.
They're actually if it's real love, they're actually bringing you a dosage of God's love, so to speak. But also, yes, it reminds you too. In other words, if you're sitting or if you're feeling down, right, and you start meditating on how Hashem loves you, you will feel healing coming into your body. Okay. I had an ulcer for 8 years, and whatever medication was available wasn't healing it. Finally, it came to a point where the doctor says we're going to have to do surgery. So that broke my prejudice against meditation. And I went and I got 3 or 4 half-hour lessons in meditation. And I started to meditate, and my meditation was just with the word shalom. Okay? And in other words, I learned how to breathe properly. You had to relearn how to breathe properly. And I would, just either with voice or sometimes without voice. And I would just, meditate on Shalom. And I would visualize the letters and visualize the energy of Shalom coming, God's energy coming into my body. And in less than a month, my ulcer was gone. I went back to the doctor and said, why didn't you ever tell me about this? Since they don't teach us to do that. Okay? But it's there. It's there. Okay? So you can be sitting in a room with people and you don't even know them, but your very presence could be healing. And there chances are that there will be some sensitive people in the room that they will realize, wait a minute, it really feels good to be around this guy. This what's his first name? Lux. This man in the old city. He used to be a guru. He was an actual, people would come and sit around him in Central Park. He would sit in Central Park in New York and meditate. And hundreds of people would just come to sit there while he was meditating, because they would feel the energy that he was bringing into the world. Jonathan Lux is his name. He's got a very, very nice book. It's called Coming Back to Earth. No, Gil Lux, not Jonathan. Gil Lux, G-I-L. The book is called Coming Back to Earth. And I told you about him in the past. And but to be able to do that, when you read his personal story, what he went through in his search for truth and his search for really connecting with God, you realize that this is no ordinary person. This is a person who is ready to sacrifice everything to find that truth. Okay. And when you find it, when you get in touch with it, this is an amazing thing that you can do. Is that you can connect with that energy with that life energy of before creation. You've heard of people healing, what they call it, hands-on healing, or they can do that. Now, what are they doing? Well, they're channeling that energy to the person's body. And there are hospitals that will allow you to bring in such healers in the hospital. There are hospitals that recognize that there's this healing power.
How would you define, in a few words, energy, love before creation, love after creation?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Well, love after creation is that you're not really feeling, you're not really, you're not living in that space, but there's certain things can arouse it within you, right? In other words, you see a poor person, you feel sorry for them, you go ahead and you do something for them, right? The love before creation is, whom can I help? Whom can I do a favor to? Whom can I, is there anybody that needs my help, right? You want to just go out and do something.
It's a mind over matter sort of thing. I think that
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. It's partially that. I don't know if it's exactly that. It's for sure related.
So the secret of healing is
to connect with the love of before creation.
And the love is before creation means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has love of
There's-
the create.
He has so much love that he creates the world so that he has someone to share it with. Without the world, God didn't have anyone to share the love
When
with.
this is love before creation.
That's before creation. Because of the love, he created the
How
world.
does one attain that? How does a human being attain? Yes, I want all the answers. I'll read those.
You need to learn from women.
You're
Women know the
talking,
secrets of love.
you're talking to the wrong person.
I don't have an answer in 1 minute. We'll try to continue tomorrow. In the meantime, maybe you'll think about it today and you'll.
I will.
You say now, when you answer him, that love before creation is before the fact, and after creation is
After creation is that you need something to stimulate it.
In other words, before was love had so much love that because of the love he created the world.
Right.
So for us it could be we feel so much love for the world, for Hashem, for whatever that we want to do something for
Right.
someone.
Right.
But I had terrible experiences with life.
Anyway, so we continue, Mr. Shem, yeah? Okay, Kol Tov.